To make a welt pocket, first gather your materials. You need a pocket lining, pocket facing, which will be seen through the welt opening, two pieces of fusible interfacing to stiffen up the garment opening and the welt, a welt piece, and finally a garment piece where the pocket will go. In this tutorial, I'm showing you how to make a three-piece pocket bag that has a lighter material for the bag, a contrasting color welt piece, and a pocket facing that matches the outside of the garment. The pocket bag could also be made with a single piece of fabric, especially if the garment material is lightweight. First, you need to put fusible interfacing onto the wrong side of the pocket welt. Make sure the glue side of the interfacing is down and press firmly with the iron. It takes a minute or two to completely fuse the interfacing. Put the second piece of fusible interfacing on the wrong side of the garment material where you want the welt pocket to go. Press firmly and completely to fuse the interfacing to the garment material. Now you can draw out your welt on the interfacing of the garment piece. This is a 5-inch wide welt. It is approximately 1 inch from each side of the interfacing, vertically located in the center. Each welt is approximately 1/4 inch tall. You can modify the size and the width of your welt to fit your garment and preferences. Then put the wrong sides of the facing and the pocket lining together along the long edge of the facing. Stitch approximately a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Backstitch and then trim away the seam allowance of the facing material close to the stitching. This will allow you to create a flat felled seam. Be careful to not cut the pocket lining seam allowance. Repeat for the welt piece. Notice the alignment of the pieces. Both the facing and the welt are on top of the pocket bag, with the good sides facing up and wrong sides facing down together with the bag. Once again, trim the welt seam allowance close to the stitching so you can roll around the pocket lining seam allowance to create a flat felled seam. Prepare the flat felled seam by first pressing the seam flat and then fold the seam allowance around the raw edge and press again. This makes it easier to sew the flat felled seam. Press completely, then repeat on the other side for the pocket facing. First press flat, then roll it over and press again. If you make a mistake while you are pressing, just press again. The creases just need to be close, so it helps you while you are sewing at the machine. With the fabric rolled over the raw seam allowance, stitch it completely down and in place on the pocket facing. That completes the flat felled seam. Trim your thread, then do the same process on the pocket welt side. Roll the seam allowance of the pocket lining around the raw edge of the welt and then stitch it in place with a flat felled seam. The next step is to place the right side of the welt to the garment right side. Place it precisely over the previously fused interfacing on the garment piece. You can use pins to ensure your alignment of the pocket markings and the center of the welt piece. Double check before you sew. The important part of sewing a welt is to sew precisely from the beginning to the end of the lines you marked on the interfacing. Take your time and place your needle exactly at the corner of the welt. Back tack and then sew straight along the line, stopping precisely at the end. Raise your needle and spin your material. There is no need to trim the thread until the next stitching is complete. Line up and start your needle even where the other stitching ends. Back tack at the end and stitch straight along the line, stopping in line with the other side. Then you need to trim the center of the welt. Fold the fabric in half and then begin trimming by cutting a slit in the middle. Be careful to only cut the fabric in the center. With your shears, trim up to the triangle that you drew earlier and then clip out at a 45-degree angle as close as possible to the stitching without clipping past the stitching or clipping the stitching. Repeat for the other side. Cut up through the center to the tip of the triangle. Then, at a 45-degree angle, trim to the stitching without clipping the stitching. Now it is time to pull the pocket bag through the welt opening to the other side. Pull all the fabric through, including the welt and the pocket lining. As you do this, it will start to form the rectangle of the welt. When you flip it over and stretch the fabric out, you should start to see the shape and size of the welt. This is the time to correct any trimming if you have not trimmed completely to the corners. You can go back and fix your trimming. This is how it looks from the other side. At the iron, press and pull your corners out. Take your time to make everything nice, crisp, and square. Flip it over and press the other side. Unfold the top welt piece and press it open and flat. Then fold the welt at the center of the opening and press a crease to hold it in place. Take your time and make sure it is lined up with the middle on both sides. Then fold the pocket bag all the way up and press the bottom welt flat and open. Then fold the bottom welt to meet in the middle of the opening of the top welt. Press it to form a crease to keep it in place. Once you have the welts in place and pressed, you need to put stabilizing stitching on both edges. In a final garment, you would use matching color thread, but I am using darker thread for you to see. Stitch close to the garment fabric and backtack right along the edge. If your machine does a zigzag, you can do a tight zigzag here. Repeat on the other side. You can also top stitch all the way around the welt to secure it and for decoration, but I did not do that in this example. After the welts are stabilized, you need to secure the top part of the welt to the opening seam allowance. Stitch the welt and the seam allowance together to make sure the top part of the welt doesn't sag when the garment is in use. Stitch along these two seam allowances, making sure you only stitch through those seam allowances and not through any of the garment or the pocket bag. Now fold the pocket bag up to meet the top of the welt seam allowance. Put the right side of the facing together with the seam that you just secured. Line everything up and make sure it is nice and square. Start at the bottom corner of the pocket bag. Fold all the fabric of the garment out of the way. Backtack at the bottom of the pocket bag and stitch up to the top corner. Be sure not to stitch through other parts of your garment. When you get to the top corner, you can leave your needle down. Then lift your presser foot and twist and fold your fabric around and out of the way. Line up your seam allowances and stitch across the top of the welt, closing off the top of the pocket bag. At the second corner, lift your presser foot again, and then sew down to the bottom of the pocket bag. Backstitch to secure your thread. If you have a machine that can zigzag, or overcast stitch, or a serger, this is a great time to finish the raw seam allowances of your pocket bag. I used an overcast stitch, but a zigzag stitch works as well. Using a serger is the best option. The last thing you need to do is secure these little triangles that you cut to make the pocket opening. Fold the triangles down, flat and straight. Then stitch and backtack right along the corners. Be sure not to stitch through the garment. Trim your thread and complete on the other side. Stitch a few stitches and backtack. Trim your thread, and now your welt pocket is complete. Now I have a place to put my scissors. There is a PDF template linked in the video description for you to download and use as is, or modify the sizing to fit your project. Welt pockets are snazzy and they can seem complex, but once you do this a few times, welt pockets are very simple and straightforward to create in any sewing project.